Welcome back to TrueLens. Okay, today we dive into one of the most dangerous flashpoints in global geopolitics, the South China Sea. Recently, tensions escalated when China's Coast Guard fired water cannons at a Philippine ship in a brazen act of intimidation. The Philippines has called this piracy, but it's more than that. What China is doing is nothing short of bullying, with threats of violence such as an axe being raised against a Philippine Navy officer. And the reasons behind this? Well, they're as aggressive as the actions themselves. This isn't a new development. For years, China has been ramping up its presence and control over the South China Sea. What began in 2014 as a quiet land reclamation effort has turned into a large-scale military operation that has seen China build artificial islands inside the territorial waters of other countries, including the Philippines. This strategy is part of China's broader plan to dominate the region. And to make no mistake, China is determined to back it up with force if necessary. The Philippines president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., has been outspoken about this encroachment, arguing that any attack on their seas is an attack on the nation's very soul. But the Philippines' ability to fight back is limited. They don't have the resources or military might to stand toe-to-toe with China. So, while the Philippines has been vocal in international forums, the question remains, can they protect their territorial integrity? At the core of China's actions is its strategy of building islands, turning small reefs and rocks in the South China Sea into militarized outposts. These islands, some built from nothing, now stand as symbols of China's claim to nearly 90% of the South China Sea. The controversial Nine-Dash Line is the heart of China's claim, a line drawn on maps stretching across the majority of the sea, cutting into the exclusive economic zones, EEZs, of Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and the Philippines. The problem with this? International law doesn't support it. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, every coastal country has sovereignty over 12 nautical miles from its coastline, with an additional 200 nautical miles as its exclusive economic zone, EEZ. This law is meant to prevent one country from claiming international waters as its own, but China, despite signing the convention, has decided to ignore it. Instead, Beijing insists that the South China Sea is historically theirs, referencing a line that dates back to the 1940s. This line, drawn by the Chinese government at the time, was never legally accepted by any other country, nor was it endorsed by the international community. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague ruled that China's claims based on the Nine-Dash Line had no legal ground. The court found that China had violated the rights of the Philippines, whose EEZ was being encroached upon. Despite this, China did what it does best. It shrugged off the ruling, disregarded international law, and continued its aggressive actions in the region. And how did it back up its claim? By turning small reefs into military strongholds. What China has created are not just simple landfills, but full-fledged military installations, some equipped with missile systems, radar arrays, airstrips, and housing for soldiers. Fiery Cross Reef, once a small and barely noticeable patch of land, has now become a strategic outpost. What used to be a coral reef is now home to a runway capable of handling military aircraft, as well as radar systems and weapon depots. Similarly, Mischief Reef, located in the Philippines' EEZ, has been transformed into a military base, complete with ports and facilities that can house a large military presence. In total, China has constructed 7 such islands in the Spratly Islands by 2017. These islands are located over 700 miles from China's coastline, but they are dangerously close to the Philippines and Vietnam. The real goal behind this expansion is control of one of the most important waterways in the world. The South China Sea is not just a body of water. It's a key artery for global trade. Over $3 trillion worth of goods pass through the region every year, and it's also home to vast natural resources like oil and natural gas. In fact, beneath these waters lie an estimated 11 billion barrels of oil and a 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. This makes the South China Sea one of the most valuable regions on Earth, and China, along with other nations like Vietnam and Malaysia, wants a piece of it. But China's military expansion is just one part of the puzzle. The region is also rich in marine biodiversity, with nearly a third of the world's marine life calling it home. That alone is reason enough for the countries in the region to want to protect it. Yet, the real strategic importance lies in its role as the critical link between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. Whoever controls the South China Sea controls vital trade routes that connect the economies of Asia with the rest of the world. It is, in essence, the lifeblood of global commerce. For China, this isn't just about resources, it's about power. The South China Sea is a geopolitical prize, and Beijing has made it clear it intends to claim it. But this comes with significant risks. The Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia have all challenged China's claims, and their resistance has drawn international attention. The United States, while not a claimant in the dispute, has a vested interest in ensuring freedom of navigation in the region. U.S. warships routinely patrol the waters, conducting freedom of navigation operations, FONOPs, to challenge China's expansive maritime claims. In 2023, tensions reached a boiling point after Chinese ships rammed Philippine vessels in the South China Sea, the U.S. made it clear that it would defend the Philippines in the event of an armed attack. The Mutual Defense Treaty between the U.S. and the Philippines underscores the serious implications of this conflict. If China pushes too far, it could very well ignite a larger confrontation that no one is prepared for. The stakes couldn't be higher. The South China Sea is not just a regional issue, it is a global one. The region's importance to trade, energy supplies, and international law makes it a flashpoint for potential conflict. While China's tactics in the region have raised concerns, countries like the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia are not sitting idly by. Although they may not have the military might to directly confront China, they have started to strengthen their alliances and capabilities in response. The Philippines, under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., has shifted its stance significantly. After years of trying to appease China, Manila has adopted a more confrontational approach. The Philippines has filed numerous diplomatic protests and has strengthened its military relationship with the United States, allowing for increased American presence in the region through joint military exercises. The Philippines has also taken to documenting and sharing China's aggressive actions, such as the use of military-grade lasers and the ramming of Philippine vessels. These efforts not only highlight the ongoing threat, but also serve as a rallying cry for international support. In contrast, Vietnam, which has a long history of territorial disputes with China, has been increasingly vocal about its intentions to safeguard its claim. It has expanded its own land reclamation efforts in the Spratly Islands and has bolstered its defense capabilities. Vietnam's history with China goes back centuries, with the most notable recent confrontation occurring in 1979 when China invaded Vietnam. This conflict remains a painful memory, and Vietnam remains determined not to allow China to infringe on its maritime rights again. However, the global nature of the South China Sea conflict cannot be overstated. The United States, despite having no territorial claims in the region, has repeatedly asserted its commitment to upholding international law and freedom of navigation in these waters. U.S. warships routinely conduct freedom of navigation operations, FONOP, to challenge China's excessive claim, ensuring that international shipping lanes remain open and free from unilateral control. In addition to the U.S., other countries such as Japan, Australia, and India have shown increasing interest in ensuring the stability of the region, either through joint military drills or the supply of military aid to regional nations. Even European nations like the United Kingdom have sent their warships to conduct operations, emphasizing the global stakes of this conflict. As the situation in the South China Sea becomes more tense, the region has become a flashpoint for global. As the situation in the South China Sea becomes more tense, the region has become a flashpoint for global. As the situation in the South China Sea becomes more tense, the region has become a flash. As the situation in the South China Sea becomes more tense, the region has become a flashpoint for global. As the situation in the South China Sea becomes more tense, the region has become a flashpoint for global security and geopolitical maneuvering. China's growing military presence in the area has also raised concerns among neighboring nations and the international community, especially regarding the possibility of military conflict. While Beijing has consistently maintained that it seeks peaceful resolutions to territorial disputes, its actions, such as building military infrastructure on artificial islands and expanding its naval presence, suggest otherwise. One of the primary factors driving China's actions in the South China Sea is the desire to assert its dominance in the region and to ensure control over critical maritime routes. These waters are crucial for China's energy imports, and its continued growth depends on the unimpeded flow of goods and energy through the South China Sea. Beijing's insistence on controlling these waters has led to a series of confrontations with other claimant states, as well as broader international tension. In addition to territorial claims, China views the region as a means to project power and influence across Southeast Asia and beyond. The United States and its allies are keenly aware of the implications of China's action. For Washington, freedom of navigation in the South China Sea is not just a matter of international law, but also a broader challenge to China's growing assertiveness and the potential for destabilizing the global order. The United States has emphasized its commitment to ensuring that no single nation can dominate the region, regularly conducting freedom of navigation operations, FONA, and joint military exercises with allies like Japan and Australia to demonstrate a unified stance against China's territorial expansion. The U.S. Navy's presence in the area serves as a reminder to Beijing that its claims will not go unchallenged, but it also underscores the growing military competition between the two powers. In recent years, regional powers have also taken steps to shore up their defenses and counter China's influence. Countries such as Japan, Australia, and India, as part of the broader Indo-Pacific strategy, have increasingly been involved in initiatives aimed at countering Chinese dominance. Japan, with its deep economic ties to the region and historical tensions with China, has been vocal in supporting freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. Australia, likewise, has expressed its concern over the threat posed by China's military military buildup in the region and has supported efforts to ensure that international laws governing maritime disputes are upheld. One of the key challenges in addressing the South China Sea dispute is the lack of a clear, unified response from the international community. Despite the ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in 2016, which sided with the Philippines and declared that China's claims had no legal basis, China has largely ignored the ruling, continuing its aggressive actions without significant international repercussion. The United Nations and other international organizations have been largely ineffective in pressuring China to abide by international law. While some countries, particularly the United States, have taken strong stances against China's actions, other global powers, such as Russia, have been more cautious in their responses, often due to their own strategic interests in cooperating with China. The situation in the South China Sea is also deeply intertwined with broader regional security dynamics, particularly concerning the US-China rivalry. The United States views China's actions as part of a broader strategy to challenge American influence in Asia and to reshape the regional order in its favor. Beijing's increasing military assertiveness in the South China Sea is seen by many analysts as an effort to secure strategic choke points and to extend its reach into the Pacific Ocean, a move that would significantly shift the balance of power in the region. As China continues to expand its military capabilities, it is clear that the South China Sea will remain a flashpoint for global geopolitical competition. For smaller nations like the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia, the South China Sea issue represents not only a fight for territorial sovereignty, but also a struggle for regional stability. While these countries do not have the military resources to challenge China directly, they are increasingly turning to international alliances and diplomatic channels to counter Beijing's aggression. The Philippines, for example, has sought stronger ties with the United States and has participated in joint military exercises to bolster its defense capabilities. At the same time, Vietnam has strengthened its military posture and has actively sought to gain international support for its claim. The role of the international community in this dispute is critical, and multilateral organizations such as the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, have been working to mediate discussions and encourage dialogue among claimant nations. However, ASEAN's ability to act decisively has been hindered by internal divisions and a lack of cohesion on how to approach China. While some ASEAN members are more vocal in their opposition to China's actions, others are hesitant to take a strong stand, given their economic ties to Beijing. Ultimately, the future of the South China Sea dispute hinges on whether China can be persuaded to abide by international law and respect the rights of other nations in the region. The international community must find ways to hold China accountable while avoiding military confrontation. Diplomatic pressure, multilateral engagement, and continued support for the rule of law will be crucial in determining the outcome of this high-stakes geopolitical struggle. The path forward will require careful balancing, as any misstep could escalate tensions and potentially lead to open conflict. In the coming years, the situation in the South China Sea is likely to remain one of the most significant challenges in global geopolitics. As China continues its efforts to cement its dominance in the region, the international community will need to adapt and respond to ensure that peace, stability, and the rule of law prevail in this strategically important part of the world. And that's it for now. See you on the next one.